I found this article and I thought it was interesting, and it's from Virgie Townsend. It is about a descendant of slave owners, and it really paints a true picture of slavery. And this person was 100% honest in what their family was a part of. They told everything. So they actually stated that they benefit even to today. So this person was being very transparent. They were really giving a lot of information on their family. And I thought it was very interesting to hear. And it was very truthful. And it says, what I learned from my slave-holding ancestors. When the white supremacists chanted blood and soil in honor of the Confederate general in Charlottesville this weekend, they were invoking me and people like me. On my father's side, I descended from plantation families that enslaved Africans and Negroes in Mississippi and South Carolina. My second great-grandfather, Samuel Mitchell McAllister Jr., was a slave-holding Confederate private in Mississippi State Cavalry. White supremacists have called, so I must respond. As a descendant of slaveholders and Confederate soldiers, I wanted to tell the truth about the evil that my ancestors and the Confederate perpetuated, the repercussion their crimes have today, and how I and other white people still benefit from discrimination against people of color. While conducting genealogical research in 2012, I traced my family line back to Enoch Grubbs, my fourth great-grandfather. As I looked through the census records and other documents, I found transcripts of his will written in 1831. He was 76. It read, to my son William, my Negro Lucy, and 6 children now in his possession. To his grandsons, Enoch bequeathed 4 enslaved people, including my Negro girl Hannah, 6 years old, and my Negro boy George, 4 years old, which means these children were taken from their mother, and stipulated that if his grandsons died before turning 21 and marrying the Negro or Negroes so given to him, then shall go to and belong to the survivors or survivor of them, my said 3 grandchildren, to them and their heirs forever. I'm descended from Enoch's daughter from his second marriage, who was 12 when her father died. For her, her mother, and other young siblings, Enoch ordered the sale of any enslaved people he had not specifically bequeathed. He said the proceeds should pay for their maintenance and education. I was disgusted as I read Enoch's will. He is a Dar-recognized Revolutionary War veteran who used the land he received for his service to grow rich off the backs of black men, women, and children. And this shows that it wasn't some rich Jewish person. It wasn't the elitist. This was just a person who went to war and was a soldier and received land, and then went ahead and bought black people. So when people are saying it was very few, it's bullshit. It's a lie. It was quite a few people, and they were not the super rich. Lucy and her children stand out in his will as the only family that appears mostly intact, suggesting that they may have received differential treatment. It is possible, and I wouldn't say possible, I say it's definite that Enoch raped Lucy and fathered her children, because that's what they did. And I wanted to say, because I hear this on social media, I think it's absolutely disgusting. There are black men saying black women had access to black men, and basically it's either 2 things that is going on. 1, they are twisting the truth to make a buck, or something is mentally wrong with them and they are a deviant to equate rape with a relationship or the approval of the other person. And also you could see that the children that he fathered, he also enslaved them, but he did make sure that they were treated differently, and they were kept near him and kept with their mother, and they received different treatment than the other children and black children whom he enslaved. Young Hannah and George were taken from their parents to live and die in labor to a stranger, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, taken from their parents, sold to someone else. In his own words, Enoch planned for his grandchildren and their descendants, including me, to continue these crimes forever. In some ways, he got his wish. Over the past 5 years, I've tried to find out what happened to the people Enoch enslaved. William Grubbs, who inherited Lucy and her children, moved to a plantation in Alabama. He listed 23 enslaved people in his will. Lucy isn't named among them. Enoch's grandson, Enoch Lot, mostly disappeared from government records, taking the fate of Hannah and George with him. If they lived to see the Emancipation Proclamation, Hannah would have been 38 and George would have been 36. Even free, their lives would have been hard. They had already lost their family and would have no money or education. I haven't been able to find any photos of them. Another depressing illustration of how white history erases people of color and tries to bury the lives of the people it exploits. Couldn't have said it better. Would have threw in place of people of color, Negroes, but they did do some nefarious things to other people. But specifically talking about slavery, that was African and Negro people. I do have a family photo of my second great grandmother, Minerva's daughter and Enoch's granddaughter. The photo, she is the youngest, seated between two children, I believe, are her sisters, taken in 1860 census. Her father, P.R. Thompson, is listed in the slave schedule as owning 8 enslaved people, ranging from a 1-year-old baby girl to a 35-year-old woman. And that's her. And this is the ledger. The Union and the people it freed technically won the Civil War, but my ancestor had already built a society that would favor them and their descendants based on skin color. They had the powerful connections throughout the South. They had soul fellow human beings to fund their own education, ensuring they qualified for important jobs. And that is the important thing that I always think about. Really, I will never believe anyone who's saying anything about IQ or intelligence, having the imagination, skill, and creativity. That is all bullshit. This was a host-parasite relationship. This was about survival. This was about a people who saw black people or Negro people and saw what they created. They knew that these people were strong, were talented, were superior. So they devised a plan to actually exploit the talents, but they had to keep their host in a subservient position to benefit because of their weakness. So they wanted to fund their own education, and they wanted to become wealthy and rich, and they saw a good host to do that with. And that is essentially what slavery was. This was what this nation is. This nation was supposed to be for white progression, and that's exactly what it is. And generation after generation after generation, it doesn't have to be the typical antebellum chattel slavery that's going on. Of course, it would evolve into something different, but their descendants are practicing certain techniques, I would say, that they got from in those days, which they passed down like tradition and tell about the stories, and they just tweaked it and they continue. That's why this nation continues, because it has to have someone to exploit. It has to have someone that it can step up on and make them wealthy. So it's evolved into a different way, and it continues. And that's why we haven't received any reparations, or we can't get up. It has nothing to do with what Black people can't do, won't do, intelligence, or anything like that. This is a concerted effort, a collective effort to perpetuate this behavior so they can continue to survive. They have to have a host, and Black people are one of the strongest hosts there is. I still benefit from generational wealth and education that my ancestors stole from Black people. After fighting for the Confederacy, Samuel McAllister received a position as a postmaster, a prestigious role singling him out as one of the few literate men in his town. When he died, his obituary praised him as a lifelong Christian and a man of a strong and well-cultivated mind. That really sounds like some of the presidents that were also slaveholders and rapists and pedophiles. You can see here that this person admitted that they are still benefiting off of the generational wealth and education, among other things, and that the parasite-host relationship to bring a people from their native land and take away everything about them and put them in a position where they don't understand anything is not about not being able to do it, because Black people got it done. They built the White House. Once you can understand your surroundings, you will be Black people can flourish, period. But taking us out from our native land and our language, and taking everything from us and putting us in a new environment, and then try and call us stupid because we didn't understand the language and because there were certain barriers and cultural barriers, was very, very insidious. It was malicious and a thing to do. And then to pass this on even today, you have teachers in classroom calling black people stupid. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with cultural differences. It was that language barrier in slavery. The hell am I supposed to know what a French person is telling me to do or wanting me to do, and I don't fucking know French or their culture? That's basically what that is. How mentally diseased, and how this plan, how disgusting the plan was to create their wealth and everything they have off the backs of Black people. They still pass down these deceitful, malicious lies of intelligence and being more intelligent. It's absolutely disgusting to actually see it for what it is. This person basically would not allow the slaves to learn the culture and the language, could not read to keep them in a certain position, and then was helmed as literate. Of course he would be fucking literate. You wouldn't even allow the people to actually learn in this environment that is foreign to them. And then another thing, this is a Christian. This is a person who calls himself a Christian. And I talk about Christianity as well, because I used to be a Christian. And it was because it was passed down through the slaves. It was passed down to my mother, even to me. So, and the idea of it has changed with the times. I no longer do man-made religions or religions at all. I do read the Bible. I do understand that things have been changed. It's not in its original language. It was translated and all of that. But Christianity is connected to Catholicism. They are one and the same. And Catholicism is definitely a man-made religion. And nobody really reads the Bible. People just listen to what the preacher tells them. And because if they actually read it, you would actually see the stuff that you should not be doing. And Christianity, Catholicism is steeped in a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing because it can harm your life. And it also preaches against everything that they were doing. 98 years after his death, many of his descendants, including my immediate family, are college educated. I went to a well-respected undergrad program as a legacy student and was an attorney at the age of 25. Now, this just shows, even today he's talking about himself, that he is college educated and he went to he's a legacy student, which means, his family went through that school. It has nothing to do with intelligent or being smart. It has everything to do with this system that was set up to benefit white people. I'm not alone in the advantages I've reaped from the exploitation of people of color, although we want to believe we come from honest, hardworking people. Even the poorest of our early European American ancestors had an upper hand over their contemporaries who had dark skin, particularly for employment opportunities. After the Civil War, Robert E. Lee personally advised his son to only hire other whites, writing, "You will never prosper with blacks. Our material, social, and political interests are naturally with whites." And that is loaded within itself. Material things, the society that has been set up, and the political realm, which is the judicial, legislative, everybody knows about that, are naturally within white. So to keep this power, we have to exclude black people and exclude others, and we have to keep it as lily white as we possibly can to have this material advantage, social advantage, and political advantage. Like I said, this was a plan. And it's even biblical where it said that these people, this group, and it extends to other cultures of white people, but these people planned this. They got together and they planned to do this. And it is continued to be carried out only in a more modern way by their descendants. Because this person said they benefit from that generational wealth education. They benefit from the privilege. They've benefited from the blueprint of what their ancestors laid down, which was utter degenerate behavior to Negroes and usury and exploitation. My ancestors helped build a society that would favor them and their descendants based on skin color. The legacy of white supremacy is that Negroes continue to be deprived of opportunities, hurting them and a nation that needs their talent and contributions to thrive. And as far as needing the talent, you can see how many industries, like I said, with the NBA, NFL, among other sectors, if those men were not there, there would be no trillion-dollar businesses. There would be no owners. There would be no coaches. There would be no referees. There would be no water boy. None of that. And it's in there. They are starting to see, and this is something that I see when you see a lot more black people. They are put in positions that whites don't want to work. That's one. And then they can get to a point where they get frustrated with their own people who they see does not want to work. They are not intelligent, and then they'll go in, especially through a temp agency, and go get the intelligent, educated black person, pay them way less to get the work done, and then throw them away after they don't need them. They still are trying to maintain this. I want to harvest your talent and your intelligence, but I need to keep you a permanent underclass for my survival. By hoarding jobs and educational resources over centuries, white U.S. families remain richer on average than black families, according to a report from the Institute for Policy. It will take black families 228 years to accumulate wealth that white families have today. That's just 17 years shorter than the 245-year span of slavery in this country. And you can see black people angst, black people stress, everything from family issues, drug issues, any issue you can think of has to do with not having wealth, not having the basics. And this is a direct correlation with slavery. And that debt has to be paid. And I don't argue with people about the payment to black people, because you get nothing for free. So this nation owes Negroes, and they are going to end up paying it the hard way. I think you can do it the easy way or the hard way, but a lot of them would be drugged into hell before they would ever give a black person anything that they deserve. and knowing that they are going to do it the hard way, there's interest on that, and they are going to pay that interest as well, and they are going to have to pay that compounded interest in blood. That's what it seems like it has to come down to. And I'm not talking about black people going out killing anyone. We don't have to lift a finger. It's already begun. I think that there's enough videos out there, and I've done them too, about what's going on with them, and including where we're seeing all of these hurricanes, and black people and people of color are getting caught up in it. We really need to try and separate as much as we can from them, because we could get caught up in that. Even to some stories that I've seen about these so-called dormant super volcanoes, not regular volcanoes, are awakening. One, I believe, is in Italy, and the one here in the United States, Yellowstone. So a lot of the judgments within this nation, because it doesn't want to admit what it did, it doesn't want to uncover all of its lies and its disgustingness, and they don't want to do it the easy way, so they will be made to do it, and it will be the hard way, even if every single one of them had to go. And we are not going to have to lift a finger, as we don't right now, when it's already started. It's just the start of things to come. But I'll continue. 2015, the Economic Policy Institute found that black people are twice as likely to be unemployed than whites, regardless of their education level. And I wanted to expand on that because I do have additional education other than high school. So it doesn't matter if you have your associates, bachelor's, master's. If you have 2 masters, you can have 88 masters. It doesn't matter. Once they've reached their quota, they will not be hiring anymore. And it's been like this for years. I believe half a century, 50 years. Black people, the employment level is always double the nation, if not more. And that's not counting the people who just tapped out and they'll do something else to survive. And it says here, the disparity is especially stark for black women, who are the most educated group in the country. Now, they didn't say the most educated within the racial group, black men, black women. They said the most educated in the country. That's encompassing all women in this country, but have the highest unemployment rate among women in the United States. These are educated, intelligent, smart women who cannot get proper employment. It's disgusting. and it's planned out. I do understand that Black people have to come together at some point and take things into our own hands and do better. I'm 100% on board with that, but I'm not oblivious to practices of those who want to keep this parasitic host relationship, and that they're actually practicing things against us to keep us as this permanent underclass. And also reading through this, when I was reading all of the names of the slaves that were passed on to children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I saw little girls and little boys. I saw male and female. And this male and female going back and forth within Black social media and the Black community is absolutely disgusting. It's this thing, I've suffered more. It is no somebody suffering more. Black men and women both were in the fields picking cotton. Black men and women were both in the house being raped. So this going back and forth to say I have it harder, and I've heard this out of Black males' mouth the most. I have it harder. I'm a Black male. They can't stand me, my masculinity, because of a patriarch type of society. Like I said, to me, it is equal. It's not one that is experienced more than the other. Both genders experience it all. And we're setting up here fighting amongst each other, talking about I had it worse. No, I had it worse. Is just beyond me. And I'm not talking about as far as what's going on in the community that we're doing to each other. I'm talking about when it comes to white supremacy and the traditions that it practices on Black people. White supremacists and Confederate apologists want other white people to join them in their half-baked fantasies of the antebellum South, plantation with white columns, dirt roads, framed Spanish mossed hoop skirts, but to love the Confederacy is to side with murderers, rapists, child abusers, thieves, pedophiles. I'll go ahead and add that in there. White supremacy chokes off innovation and seeks to consolidate power within the hands of the people that were too lazy and greedy to work their own land, care for their own children, pay employees for their work. Now, I gotta go ahead and strike that, but because that's not even, I do agree, because this is something that I say and then I'm called racist for saying it, and they want to go in because it cuts. I didn't know. I thought they were so delusional that they believed the bullshit that was coming out of their mouth, but now I know the reason why. When I say stuff like this, it cuts them deep because it's the truth. And they go on this tirade because the truth is bearing down on that ass. But I do say, when they try and come for me, you were lazy. That's why your ass was flat. You did it. You exploited people because you were not innovative and intelligent enough to make this a white utopia on your own. And this person expanded on even caring for the children. They couldn't even breastfeed and care for their children and provide nutrition. That's sad. And it shows you the reason for the parasitic host relationship. Survival. And they did not pay the slaves for their work. That's what I would prefer them. And they will not pay their descendants with interest for everything that was contributed to this nation by the work of the slaves. Because we all know, every black person here, and why we are here. There is no trying to figure out who should get what. I'm sorry. There shouldn't. You know what you owe. You know what you did. So go ahead. But no, they are going to hold on for dear life. And like I said, it's going to cost them dearly. And it already is. It's not every day that you're passed out in a car with a needle in your arm and the baby is there, could be stolen by a pedophile, or you laid out in the street. You wandered out into the car. This was a personal call that I got. You wander out into the street and pass out in OD, but you don't die, and leave the baby in the fucking car. The drug epidemic is kicking that ass. You can see it. I see it when I walk around my neighborhood, the ones who are around here. I know when you're on drugs. I know that look. Suicide, diseases that only affect them, sunburn in 60-degree weather, really? And on and on. Rallying around a statue of Robert E. Lee is the perfect encapsulation of white supremacy's history. Desperate white people going into battle because they are scared of losing the power and comfort they've taken by the degenerate exploiting of Negro people. Their invocation of blood and soil should be a reminder to Africans, Negroes, and indigenous Americans whose blood was spilled on American soil. It reminds me of Lucy and her children, 6-year-old Hannah and 4-year-old George, and what we owe their descendants. Damn, that was good, and I'll give Virgie Townsend their due, because this was perfect. This is everything that I have said multiple times over and more. And I wanted to say this because this is coming from a European person. This is coming from a Caucasian. There is no getting around this. You hear it, you know what needs to be done, but like they understand, and also we as black people, we understand they're not going to do it. They will, like I said, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of death for them to do it, and not by the hands of black people or anyone else. It's basically started, and you see, even though these things that are starting to come against them are happening, they still won't stop. So you can see the level it's going to have to get to before they even attempt to try something, if they even attempt to try something. But this person is actually breaking it down very, very well. The people in Charlottesville were saying blood and soil, which means that they are okay with what happened. They would continue it even today. So this person is saying, as a warning to African people, Negro people, and indigenous Americans, that you need to take this seriously, that these people are very serious about it, and in their fear of losing their power and their ability to exploit people and their comforts and their privilege, that these people will go back to the heinousness of their ancestors. They will go back to antebellum chattel slavery. I mean, this is a volatile situation, and that sentence says to me that we really need to take it seriously, and we really need to watch our backs, and we really need to pay attention to what is going on, because people are kind of making a joke of it. People are kind of laughing about it. People are calling them stupid, but you have to understand the brutality that their ancestors did, and they are capable of even more with the modernized weaponry and torture tactics that they have now, that they can surpass their ancestors in brutality, and we have to really take it seriously. But I will go ahead and leave it right here. Let me know what you think. I'll leave the article in the description box. This is just, I think this is very perfect. And at the end was the perfect ending to say that we owe them. They owe us. And go ahead, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one.